Imagine a world where the badge on the hood of a car carries literal centuries of unquestioned prestige. A world where that German emblem was the ultimate signal of success, right? Where profits were just measured in the billions without a second thought. Well, welcome to today's Explainer. I am super excited to guide you through this, because today we're doing a deep dive autopsy on a legendary automotive titan. We're asking a question that honestly felt completely impossible until very recently. How on earth does a brand built on absolute control, precision, and bulletproof financial stability suddenly find itself bordering on a total systemic crisis? So, check this out. In mid-2025, the CEO of Porsche dropped a statement that practically sent shockwaves through the entire global market. He said, "Our business model no longer works in its current form." I mean, just take a second and really absorb that. We aren't talking about some scrappy startup pivoting here. We're talking about an absolute pillar of European industry flat out admitting that the very machinery of their success is broken. So how did a brand with such a rich, unshakable heritage end up at this absolute crisis point? Well, the sheer brutal scale of this problem really comes down to one single number: 99%. Yep, you heard that right. We are witnessing a staggering 99% collapse in operating profit for literally one of the most stable companies in modern history. This is an immediate, massive financial hemorrhage. It's not a rounding error, and it's definitely not just a slight dip in the market. Look, when a titan loses 99% of its operating profit, it tells us something fundamental has snapped beneath the surface. So, here is how we're going to unpack this today. We'll start with the 99% collapse itself, then move into the silent Eastern Revolution, look at the electric cost trap, and finally wrap up with recalibrating modern luxury. Let's get right into it. All right, starting with part one, the 99% collapse, diagnosing the financial hemorrhage. To really grasp the severity of the situation, we're looking at a jaw-dropping plummet from over 4 billion euros in operating profit down to just 40 million. And guys, this didn't happen over a slow, agonizing decade. This happened in a matter of months. When you go from counting your profits in the billions to merely the tens of millions, you're looking at a forensic sign of a failing foundation. This is a massive, blinking red warning signal for European automotive dominance. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that this isn't just a bad quarter. The actual foundation of the German badge and European automotive heritage is fracturing. For decades, right, these automakers built massive empires on this blueprint of control, precision, and stability. We've basically all been sold the idea that heritage equals invincibility. But the data here is screaming that in a world where technology moves faster than established business models, heritage just isn't enough anymore. That brings us to Section 2, the silent Eastern Revolution and the cultural disconnect in a crown jewel market. To truly figure out how the floor totally fell out from under Porsche, we absolutely have to look at China. For years, the German badge was the deciding factor for wealthy buyers over in the East. But early in 2025, the market delivered a completely brutal reality check. Deliveries in China plummeted by a massive 42%. I mean, that is almost half the market literally wiping their hands of the brand overnight. So why the sudden drop? It's because what the modern consumer actually wants has fundamentally shifted. What we're seeing is this super jarring disconnect. On one side, you've got the old world paradigm, right? They're selling history, mechanical precision, and raw power under the hood. But on the other side, this Eastern Revolution is demanding tech, true value, and seamless software. Turns out, modern buyers care way less about a booming exhaust note and way more about whether the infotainment system actually works like their smartphone. They're choosing intelligence over heritage. For the first time in decades, relying on the legacy of a logo simply isn't going to close the deal. And who exactly is capitalizing on this massive shift? Well, it's a completely new breed of competitor. These Chinese companies are driving this silent revolution. We're talking about brands like Zeekr, NIO, and even Xiaomi. Think about that for a second. A smartphone maker is suddenly out-engineering a century-old automotive titan. And they're offering better software alongside elite build quality, all at a fraction of the price. They are giving the modern consumer exactly what they want, and in doing so, they are completely bypassing that traditional prestige model. Moving right along to Section 3. The electric cost trap and the insatiable financial suffocation. Look, the problem isn't just this fierce competition from the East. It's the raw, staggering economic cost of trying to transition to electric vehicles. Porsche jumped into the EV space with total confidence, but just look at how this squeeze is mounting up. First off, their flagship EV, the Taycan, Deliveries fell by an astonishing 49%, as luxury EV interest just unpredictably shifted. Second, they've poured nearly 2.7 billion euros into reworking their factories. Then, add on hundreds of millions in costs from totally new tariff pressures. And finally, battery input costs that just refuse to relax. The company is literally suffocating under the financial weight of this whole transition. Now, what's absolutely critical to grasp here is that this is definitely not an isolated incident. This is a systemic risk. It's become a zero-sum game for the entire high-end European segment. Honestly, brands like Ferrari, Bentley, and Mercedes are staring down the exact same barrel. They're realizing that brand power isn't a guarantee when technology moves this fast. They're basically forced to spend billions developing these new electric platforms. But here's the trap, right? If you price the cars too high to cover those costs, demand vanishes. If you price them too low to compete, your margins just disappear. Even the absolute strongest companies are struggling to keep their heads above water right now. So, what's the prognosis for all this? Let's check out Section 4, Recalibrating Modern Luxury, the Desperate Pivot to Survive. What we're watching unfold is a massive recalibration of what luxury actually means today. Legacy brands are essentially being forced to rely on scarcity and their core identity as their absolute last stabilizing forces. The old playbook of just producing more and more cars and leaning on a fancy badge, yeah, that's completely gone. They have to totally redefine their value proposition to the consumer if they actually want to survive this. And that brings us to their immediate survival strategy, which, let's be real, is a massive strategic retreat. Step 1, Porsche is having to publicly backtrack on its hugely publicized goal of being 80% electric by 2030, finally admitting that target just isn't realistic anymore. Step 2, they're pivoting right back to hybrid technology. And Step 3, focusing heavily on limited-run performance models. Basically, they're trying to do more by doing less. It's a super fascinating pivot, kind of similar to the strategic contraction that saved older tech giants like Motorola when they were completely backed into a corner. So, we arrive at the ultimate question, one that's brilliantly posed by the sources we've unpacked today. Is this 99% profit collapse just a short-lived illusion of a temporarily bad market? Or are we truly witnessing the official end of the era for the European heritage car? As the definition of luxury pivots entirely away from history and over to intelligence, these titans are facing an absolutely incredible challenge. I really hope this explainer helped you visualize the immense industrial shifts happening right beneath our feet right now. Think about that question the next time you see a luxury badge cruising down the road. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.